Your story matters, don't let it fade. When everything changed, you were made.
Hey there, this is Wendy Babcock with One Stories, the podcast. Today I am joined with Joe, who was recently on the One Story stage. Welcome, Joe.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So, Joe, let's talk about Logan's Heart and Smile. So, at the end of this podcast episode, everyone who's out there listening will get to hear your one story, right? So, we don't want to give them all the details, but I do want to jump into the impact that you're making and all the progress you've made with your nonprofit, Logan's Heart and Smiles. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So Logan's Heart and Smiles was started in 2002 after the passing of my son Logan. Logan was born with cerebral palsy in 1997, died at the age of 4.5. When he was born, he was in the NIC unit for 32 days. He was spastic, in a wheelchair, nonverbal, G-tube. He had the full boat of medical issues. And throughout his life, I knew there was a purpose and a journey for me to learn and for others to learn from him as well. So shortly after his passing, when I say shortly, like the next day, I had this feeling dream that we should start Logan's Heart and Smiles. I built a little ramp for him and didn't think anything of it. So for the last 23 years, we've been helping kiddos with safety, accessibility, and sensory needs throughout the state of Wisconsin. And then what's even more impactful, if you ask me, is our Beyond the Build program, where we truly incorporate our community and assisting with these projects. But more importantly, we bring the kids out into our communities so they have a life amongst the rest of us, because a lot of times these kids, their life's concave, so they're in parades and we have float decorating and we have movies for them and we take them bowling and all kind of things, but in different ways than some of the traditional programs, because the people that help build them come along with that. And when we're at somebody's home for a few hours to a few days, the intimacy and the connections that are made, it's at a lot bigger and more impactful personal level.
Yeah. And so you mentioned you do community events, obviously parades and those type of things, but how does community get involved with what you do? Like, is there a way that they can donate, learn more about what you're doing?
Absolutely. If you just go to logansheartandsmiles.org, our website, and there's different ways to get involved. From obviously, like any organization, donations are very much appreciated and needed, but it's just as much needed the fellowship and the friendships of how we serve people. And as we're growing throughout the state, we're based out of Madison, but there might be a family in the Milwaukee area, in the Hartford area, that we've helped, and maybe they can even stop by and say hi to the family. We're making birthday cards for these kids right now. I mean, I could go on and on about many different lists of things, but it empowers these families and the kids that somebody cares about them and they're not alone. And and then we also bring in a connection and networking between different parents through mom's nights, dad's night, and just a community, because let's face it, who else can better understand what another family's going through than another family going and sharing information about teachers or whatever it may be.
Yeah, I imagine the families, well, and from your experience with your son Logan, but it must feel very isolating sometimes, especially if you don't have those accessibility things to help you and your kids get outside, get out to these type of community events and things, and get to network and talk to other parents. Are there stories for you that really stand out with some of the people and the families that I'm sure there's tons, but like just off the top of your mind, are there any stories that stand out of families that you've helped and how it's maybe changed their lives?
Well, absolutely. So first of all, yes, most of these families, their lives concave and get smaller as the kids get older. And it doesn't matter what the affliction, from autism to a kid in a wheelchair to all of them. I mean, we could go through all the different things. But typically, as you have a child, they get bigger, stronger. They learn to eat on their own. They go to the bathroom on their own, all those components. Well, with these people, typically they don't at all, or if they do, it's certainly at a different, slower rate. everybody thinks Tiny Tim is pretty cute and all that, but when Tiny Tim turns into be a 17-year-old young man, he's not as cute. And not only that, it's significantly harder to move him around. So then people are judgmenting, you get the weird stares, the self-consciousness, all those components. So guess what? It's just easier to stay home. So that happens, especially if you don't have the access that we created. And then with the story that you asked, so one time we had a local football team. Well, I'll give them a shout out. Verona High School football has helped us a couple times now. And we did a project for a kid, and the football team helped us with the project. We ripped out some concrete and poured new concrete. So it empowered those high school kids, because most of them, none of them have ever poured concrete, been around it and all that. And there's not a human being in the United States that has not been on concrete at some point in their life. So they'll always remember that. But so this same kid that we helped, his name is Caprice, who was an 8-year-old boy with cerebral palsy back then, or at the time, then came to the football game, was a VIP and on the sidelines. Then you fast forward later the next year, that same family was at playing mini golf together, and one of the football players out of the clear blue came up, "Hey, Caprice," and gave him a fist bump. So that empowerment made the family instantly broke into tears of joy, because here they are already. And then, again, high school football players are, quote, the big men on campus. So a kid of societal worth went over and fist bumped somebody, and that wouldn't have happened without Logan's Heart and Smiles. And that's a perfect example of the beyond the build. And I could, like you said, I could share hundreds of stories, literally.
Yeah. And what I love in just getting to know you, of course, through Wen Stories is how much all of these families, and you've helped a lot, have basically become your extended family. Like,
Oh, absolutely, yes.
you know,
Very much so. We've been doing it 23 years, as I mentioned. We have had families that we have been in touch with daily, okay, maybe not daily, but certainly weekly for the past 20 plus years. And then that empowers them. And same thing for a lot of these kiddos. There's a structured system in the schools, but as soon as they age out at 21, their lives just the opportunities for them to participate in our society diminish significantly. And I know without a doubt in my mind that we are here to learn from these kids or young adults, not to learn how to live life, how to appreciate life, and the physical gifts that we all take for granted.
yeah. And, you mentioned thriving in society. You had shared a story in the coaching about a young lady that you helped, I think it was like 14 years ago, who just had a huge opportunity in a movie. Can you share that?
Oh, yeah, yeah. So Marissa Bodie was in the movie Wicked. She was Nessa Rose, and she'll be Nessa Rose in Wicked 2, which is coming out. So, yeah, that's very exciting. And we built the ramp for her, I believe it was 12 or 14 years ago. Our record keeping wasn't quite as accurate then as it is now. But yes, that's our most world famous Logan's friend, because we call the kids Logan's friends. But
Uh,
quite candidly, we have quite a few kiddos who aren't as famous, who are making the same kind of impact at just a different level.
yeah. And I imagine like when they have that accessibility and they feel seen, and I imagine that's a lot of it too, is
Absolutely.
when we get kids out into the community who, like you said, are isolated, their words, kind of, what was the word you used, conclave onto them or into their world. They stay in their
Yeah.
house all the time. And now you're out in public and it's just it's got to be a different feeling of being seen and feeling valued, you
Well,
know?
it absolutely is, but also I could go through many, many stories of the disabled child is there, and I'm like, I always tease, there's no free lunch, so we encourage and try to have them help us in whatever their capacity is, and many times the parents are a little leery, and then by the other time when we leave, they're excited and grateful, because it also shows parents that, hey, these kids can do something. And it's not just the kids, it's the siblings. So if there's a little brother or an older brother or sister or whatever it is, in fact, obviously Wen's stories is a little more about women. We have had multiple times, but there's one specific time when we helped this little guy and his older sister. She was so excited because I taught her how to use a hammer drill to drill in the concrete. She helped use a saw. She learned to read a tape measure and what square, all these basic things
Wow.
that I don't care if you're a man or female or whatever, you're
Yeah.
going to want to be able to hang a picture in your home. Or so a lot of these are just basic skills. And that empowerment for that young lady at that time, she was 9, if I recall, she was so proud of it. And it's more than just the physical build of a structure.
Yeah. And I imagine the parents, because sometimes we just want to protect our kids so much that sometimes we don't think to allow them to do some of these things outside the norm, where they must have looked at that and thought, wow, like there's more capability than maybe we even realized. And look at how much she lit up and, makes everyone feel good.
Exactly. I couldn't have said it better because that's exactly that happens on a significant amount of our builds. And
Wow.
yeah, it's really, really cool.
Yeah. And so this is a podcast, so obviously people can't see you on this, but I have to tell everyone, Joe is wearing this awesome bow tie, and it's got a smiley face in the middle. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I usually wear for our annual fundraiser a tie or a bow tie or something, but we had a grand opening for our first ever facility earlier this year in April, and I just decided then I want to wear a bow tie with a smile on it. So ever since that day in middle of April, I wear a bow tie with a smile on it to remind myself and others that we can make a difference one smile at a time. It doesn't have to be monumental to make a difference because you think about anything in life, everything we have is because somebody made something, touched something from the chair we're sitting on, the clothes we wear to everything had to do with somebody else. And if you break down everything from brain surgery to again, your clothes you're wearing, it's just a bunch of simple stitches and a bunch of little things add up to a big thing. And to me, a bunch of little smiles can have a ripple that can make a tsunami.
That's really cool. I love that. So there's other ways you're bringing smiles to your community too, is you're known as the medicine leprechaun. How did that get started?
No, that was a drunken Halloween costume 22 years ago. And um, divine intervention made whatever. Long story short, I ended up going to an event and they asked if I'd be their leprechaun. And I'm like, sure, why not? And I was single at the time but it's become a huge blessing because we've helped 9 families directly from the leprechaun because a teacher or a grandparent or an aunt, uncle, whoever it may be, has said, hey, we saw, but I'm not making this up. I saw a leprechaun on TV. You need to reach out to him. His organization does this stuff. So um, it's very fun, but so that's obviously rewarding. But what's even more rewarding is I could share again hundreds of stories, but I'll share one where I'll share young and an old. So one time I was at Children's Hospital and a mom came up to me crying. Thank you, thank you. I'm like, for what? I didn't do anything. I just showed up as a leprechaun. Big deal. Well, her son was having brain surgery the next 2 days or in few days. This is obviously before COVID, and he had wires all over his head and all that stuff. And she told me it was the first time she saw him smile and laugh in about a month. So how does
Wow.
that not melt your heart? And then there was another time. That's the younger story. The older story was there was a middle-aged woman who came up to me and said, hey, my grandfather's 100% Irish. Would you, because I play the harmonica too. So I went over and played O Danny Boy for him because his wife had recently passed away and it made the entire family cry. Of course, I was a leprechaun. So I'm unbelievably blessed to bring smiles to people in many different formats. So
Wow.
I'm the lucky one.
See, the leprechaun's bringing your own luck right to you. And
Yeah, I
it
guess.
goes back to what you said earlier, right? Sometimes it's a small thing. Like you thought, oh, big deal, I'm dressed up like a leprechaun. But look at the impact it made. And it creates a ripple effect. Making one person smile is exactly what it did.
You should see the looks I get when I'm filling up with gas as a leprechaun. I think I'm
That's
kidding.
pretty. They're probably trying to raid you for your pot of gold, though, to pay for their own gas then.
Oh, yes, I get that all the time.
Yeah.
And it's
So,
it's also really, really cool to hear the magic of the little kids because I get to see or experience, I should say, life and it's full perspective in about a 12-hour period. Because the magic wonderment of little kids, because they're like, I tell them I'm cousins of Santa's elves.
Right?
So they, you know Santa? I'm like, well, we're not tight, but we've met a few times. And do I know the tooth fairy? Do I fly in magic clouds? Blah, blah, blah. Then you go to the middle-aged, frumpy business people that think that they're more important than they really are.
Yeah.
Then I shared a story about the hospital. And then I haven't since COVID, but a lot of times I'd go to hospice when we all understand what that is.
Hmm.
I'd go to nursing homes and play leprechaun bingo with some of the folks at those places. And then depending on what day St. Patrick's Day falls on, um, I might go out and have a pint or two. So you have literally every perspective of life in a
Yeah.
short period.
I love that. So, real quick, obviously you told your story and Logan's story on the One Story stage. What was that like? Just, real quick, what was that process like for you? And now that you're on the other side of that, what does it feel like?
Well, one, it was very empowering, and everybody tells me frequently that my stories worth sharing, which I know it's unique, but everybody has an empowering story if you ask me. So it was very empowering. It also, I was so worried about being quote perfect that none of us are ever going to be. So just go out and do something. Don't be afraid about, if it's not just right, because nothing's ever quote just right. And guess what? Life's not just right.
Yeah.
So go out and embrace it. And if anybody's ever interested in doing it, I would highly recommend. If you got a story that needs to be shared and you've been given a purpose, then When Stories is a phenomenal way to magnify and hone your purpose.
Oh, thank you so much for that. So again, if you want to look into more of Logan's Heart and Smiles, you go to logansheartandsmiles.org. And I think you probably donate on the site or find out
Yeah.
more what the organization does and maybe some community events and or reach out to Joe. We'll have his information in the show notes as well.
Yeah,
Up,
please reach out because yes,
mhm,
obviously the donations are appreciated, but I'd rather know who the people are donating, and so
yeah.
they can understand the impact, where their resources are going and the changes they're making.
Awesome. Very well said. So, up next, we're going to play Joe's One Story. So, you get to hear the audio of that. And then after that, so this cohort of One Story speakers all had a special bonus. I wrote them all a theme song. So, the song we wrote for Joe, it's called Smile Like Logan. And that'll play after his One Story talk if you want to stay tuned and listen to that. So, thank you again so much, Joe. Appreciate you being here and being on
Well,
the
thank you
podcast.
for having me and impacting my life. Wendy, you're a true smile maker yourself there.
Oh,
So,
thank you for that.
just facts, ma'am.
Your story matters, don't let it fade. When everything changed, you were made.
When when I got to the doctor's waiting room with my son Logan, I picked him up, pulled him out of his wheelchair, and sat him on my lap. The two of us sat there, scared and lonely, wondering what we would do with another doctor's appointment. You see, the trials and frustrations of raising a disabled child were coming to an end of my marriage. I just left the marriage counselor's office, and as I sat there by myself with my son, I said, God, please help me. I had in a whimpering, crying voice, please help me. How am I going to take care of my son by myself? Let me take you back a bit, about 4.5 years to be exact. On a beautiful Sunday morning, August 24th, 1997, my son, Logan James Herr, came into the world. He didn't come into the world, though, in the standard ways that we're used to. He had an emergency C-section that was unplanned. They rushed Logan and his mom off like nothing. I was rushed into a small room, told to gown up. And all of a sudden, I didn't know what was going on. They literally yanked Logan out, no cries, No congratulations, here's your son. They put him in a plastic box where he would spend the next 32 days of his life. While he was in the ICU, more confusion, more fear, and more unknown continued to pile on daily. Each day I learned new terminology and techniques that I didn't even know existed. You see, during our birthing classes, they told you the normal stuff, which most of it I didn't understand or pay attention to anyway. And then they pointed down the hallway and said, there's the NIC unit. But you don't have to worry about that. Never thought of it. It just isn't something that's not talked about, especially back in the 90s when Logan was born. So as Logan progressed and slowly got better and stronger throughout the ICU, we had many trials and tribulations. It was nearly 3 weeks before I got to hold him for the first time. Grandparents and friends, I think, maybe saw him once in his first 32 days of his life. As we were preparing to get him home, we had to take classes and read up on how to take a stethoscope and shove a tube down his nose and make sure that tube would go into his stomach for nutrition versus his lungs and drowned. As you can imagine, that's kind of freaky for anybody, much less a first-time father who's already clueless to all this stuff. Heck, changing diapers was going to be new for me. So we went on, we managed, we struggled, and we figured things out like most first-time parents. But again, our new normal didn't look like what the world's normal was. And it was hard. Logan's early life was full of many trials, many tribulations, exhaustion, sleepless nights. He would get physically upset to the point of sweating like he just got out of a marathon, throwing up all over on an average car ride. Rarely could I calm him, and if I could, I'd be reaching around while I'm driving and rubbing his foot. Usually that would work, but not always. I'm a bad driver to begin with. I shouldn't be rubbing some young man's foot. So as Logan's life continued to progress, we navigated through, and as he got older, it was frustrating, but different. You see, he never learned to walk. He couldn't eat on his own. He needed a wheelchair. He never could sit up on his own either. But he continued to grow in his own way, kind of like we all do. We all have our different paths of progression and regression. So when it came time to get a wheelchair for Logan, it was very, very stressful for my wife and I. I was excited because it was going to be mobility for him. I wanted him to have cool wheels. I truly did make his wheelchair I put skis on the front and big snow tires in the back for the winter. Some of it was for fun, but some of it was also, how many times have you pushed a grocery cart through an icy, slushy parking lot? It's not fun. Imagine doing that with your son's wheelchair. And then you got to take that wheelchair and bring it in your house with the rain, the snow, the salt, the muck, all that stuff. On top of it, there were no services back in the late 90s to help you with those things. I built him a simple ramp. There was nobody to call. I had some skills. It was no big deal. I also did other modifications to our home. To me, it was just part of what you do for your family. While Logan was young, his limitations were very vivid, and to the world, he was a broken little boy. But he taught me and showed me, if you were willing to look and listen to the unseen and the unheard that he saw, you could experience and see the magic in life. You see, Logan would get so excited and so happy watching the leaves shimmer against the sun, or the reflection of the sun and the water sparkling like diamonds. It made him so happy. The simplest thing that none of us think twice about, myself included, because we're too busy. Those two things made him happier than anything you could imagine. He would laugh and laugh so loud. As I mentioned, he couldn't walk and he couldn't sit up on his own. So he would literally lay on the floor and kick his legs so fiercely like he was running. Again, the laughter was contagious. Logan also gave you mighty big, strong hugs. You see, his arms were spastic. It took nearly a year before his hands even opened up enough that he could somewhat use them. But when he gave you a hug, it was true, solid, and from the heart, and you would never forget it. I do miss those hugs, I'm not going to lie. So as Logan continued to grow and do his thing, we were, adjusting to our life, as I said. When my world changed completely, more than I could have ever known. You see, when Logan was in the ICU, I knew that there was a bigger purpose for his life. I just didn't know what it was. I couldn't put my finger on it. During all that chaos, I still had an inner peace I can't explain. But when my life and the lives of countless others changed was on a Friday evening actually, 1 week to the day, within 15 minutes of sitting on that doctor's office chair, my son Logan passed away unexpectedly due to complications of pneumonia on February 2nd, February of 2020, February 2nd, 22 of 02. So 02, 22, 02. Those, every time I hear twos, it makes me think of that. So as I go back, the uncertainty of my life, from a marriage nearly ending, a son died unexpectedly. I'm like, what is going on? How is my life turned into this? I had, things planned, and our life was our normal. And like that, it changed in an instant. By the way, we're all a phone call away from our lives changing in an instant. We just don't recognize it or want to remember that. Again, I had an inner peace, feeling, dream, whatever you want to call it, the night after Logan died that I still can't explain to this date, that I was here to help other families, and the purpose of Logan's life was to help other families like his. So the Logan James Herr Foundation started 3 months after Logan's passing. We officially became a 501c3, and we started small, and we're still kind of small, but what's turned into something for a dad trying to cope with the emptiness, the loneliness, and a purpose beyond his little boy's life has turned into something pretty quite remarkable and phenomenal. You see, for the first 20 years, there was no paid employees. We all had it was all volunteers, full-time jobs, and an army of people helping this thing chug along for 20 years. In our 20th year, we decided that it was time to make a change, to grow beyond myself and the network of people we have. So we hired an executive director. Then I came on staff, and our staff is continuing to grow. I should step back a second and actually tell you what Logan's Heart and Smiles is. So we do safety, accessibility, and sensory needs for children throughout the state of Wisconsin. We build wheelchair ramps. We build specialty beds, remodel bathrooms, install grab bars, therapy swings, just to name a few. I mean, we really try to do whatever we can to help a family, however we can. And we recognize that the life that these families live is extremely challenging and frustrating. We all have bad days, and that's life. We all hopefully have good days too. That's life. But I'm pretty sure your common bad day is a day these families could only hope, pray for, and dream about. I'm confident that most people, when they do their retirement planning, aren't planning for their severely disabled grandchild to be living in their living room in their medical bed. Just a hunch. And the world doesn't stop for these families just because you have a disabled child. We've helped multiple families where mom ends up with some type of medical illness, or dad does, or a sibling, or anything else. Life still happens to you because you have that. So when Logan was alive, we went through every resource possible to try and help him. We went to Mayo. We went to Florida. We exhausted many things at many expenses and many time consuming. Unfortunately, they weren't a lot of success. That's another reason why Logan's Heart and Smiles exists, because we recognize that these families need somebody to turn to, somebody who understands, and somebody who appreciates and respects what they're going through. When we go meet a family, not only do we help them with their physical structure, but we also help them maybe see beyond what their needs are today and to think for, if they got a 5 or 10-year-old kiddo now, what's going to look like when they're 17, 18, all those components. Plus, we have created a community called Beyond the Build. Beyond the Build was organic for us kind of since day one, but it's becoming a more formal, structured element of who we are and how we serve these families. For example, we have private movies for these kids, so an autistic kid can run around, the lights are up, and they can be themselves. We have a new physical space, same thing, where kids can come and be themselves and not be judged. We also have pontoon boat rides for them, and parades, and all kind of activities that we're just starting to create, because these kids and their parents need a place of acceptance and friendship. We really help them beyond the build. We call all the kids we help Logan's friends. You might be wondering why I'm wearing this beautiful vest and this bow tie. And the reason is to remind people that you can make a difference each and every single day. These are fingerprints of different kids that we've helped and different volunteers. Nigerian Nobel Peace Prize winner Voel Soyinka states, to become fully human, you must live for somebody else. I challenge, no, I dare you to make your life fuller, richer, and more complete for both yourself and others if you see beyond the obvious and look for ways to make differences in our lives, especially for the lives of kids like Logan. So, learn from a little boy who the world thought was broken, who couldn't walk and couldn't talk, but he changed the world. And if he could change the world, so can you. That's Logan's handprint on the back of my vest. And the fingerprints are what resonates from, again, a little boy who couldn't walk or talk. Thank you.
change someone's day. A spark of love can light the way. We smile like Logan, bright and free. It's a better world for you and me. Every heart's got room to dream. When we smile like Logan, we believe. You showed us strength in broken hands. The kindness grows where courage stands. We're building joy in every place. We see His love in every face. We can smile like Logan, bright and free. It's a better world for you and me. Every heart's got room to dream. When we smile like Logan, we believe. We believe. With laughter after tears, the hope that echoes through the years. Every step we carry on, His light lives forever strong. We can smile like Logan, bright and free. It's a better world for you and me. Every heart's got a room to dream. When we smile like Logan.